Attract wealth after extracting these teachings from the book of Proverbs. The Bible shows us countless advice for financial life, and that is what you will hear in this audiobook. Imagine for a moment that all the wealth you desire is already available to you. Imagine that there is a clear, simple, direct path that leads to this wealth. Now imagine that this path is described in one of the oldest and most respected books in human history, the book of Proverbs, found in the Bible. It is not a mystical manual, not a magic formula, but rather a collection of truths, principles, and guidelines that have spanned centuries, transforming the lives of those who have the courage to listen carefully and put them into practice. The book of Proverbs speaks of wisdom, and wisdom isn't just about knowing a lot. Wisdom is knowing how to live well. It's knowing how to make good choices, knowing how to act intelligently, knowing how to avoid waste, knowing how to value what has value. And one of the great truths revealed in this book is that those who walk with wisdom inevitably attract prosperity. Not an empty prosperity based on appearances, but a solid, lasting prosperity, both internal and external. Because true wealth isn't just the money you have, but how you think, feel, and act in relation to money, time, opportunities, people, and above all, yourself. When you begin to look at the Bible through the eyes of someone who wants to learn how to live better, you begin to realize that the advice in the book of Proverbs is actually a golden key to opening the doors to abundance. It speaks of diligence, self-control, patience, generosity, honest work, integrity, moderation, and many other virtues that, when practiced, pave a sure path to wealth. And we're not talking about religion here. It's not about following rituals or dogmas. It's about learning to think like a rich person, acting on the same principles that wise men throughout history used to transform their lives. Before continuing with the teachings, make sure you've already hit the like button, but only do this if you truly want to attract wealth into your life. If this truly matters to you, write in the comments now, "I am ready to prosper." Write this out loud too, so your mind can hear it loudly. This activates an internal decision, and you'll notice that by declaring with intention, your mind begins to move out of the state of scarcity and prepares to receive. Many people live a life of scarcity not because they lack ability or luck. What's missing is an alignment between thought, attitude, and habit. Proverbs says, "As he thinks in his heart, so is he." This means that what you believe about yourself becomes reality. If you believe you are poor, you will act like a poor person, you will decide like a poor person, you will react like a poor person, and the result will be the continuation of poverty. But if you begin to cultivate an internal image of wealth, if you begin to imagine, feel, and declare prosperity, then you begin to act differently, and little by little, everything around you begins to change as well. The great turning point is understanding that wealth is a consequence of who you are becoming. Proverbs is full of comparisons between the fool and the wise, between the lazy and the diligent, between the impulsive and the prudent, and always, the wise, the diligent, the prudent are the ones who prosper, who advance, who reap the rewards. Because wealth is not a stroke of luck, it is a daily process. It is the result of those who sow discipline, wisdom, and the right attitude, and wait patiently, trusting in the process. Have you ever stopped to think about how much time you've wasted on distractions, complaining, making useless comparisons, and fearing what others will think? How many times have you failed to act out of insecurity? Proverbs teaches that those who watch the wind never sow. In other words, those who wait for perfect conditions never begin, and those who don't begin never arrive. If you truly want to attract wealth, you have to stop looking so much outside and start looking within. Change begins within you. It is there in the silence of your thoughts that the seed of abundance needs to be planted. One of the book's most powerful lessons is the value of constant work. He says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise." The ant is small, but she works with focus, consistency, and planning. She doesn't wait for winter to start moving. She anticipates. She doesn't waste. She knows what she wants. And this is how those who attract wealth act. With vision, with purpose, with action. No excuses, no procrastination, no waiting for motivation to arrive. Those who want it, do it. Those who want it, get up. Those who want it, persist until it works. Another principle from Proverbs is the importance of avoiding unnecessary debt. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. This is a hard but necessary lesson. As long as you live dependent, living on the edge, spending more than you earn, you won't be able to breathe. You'll live trapped. Financial freedom begins when you learn to say no to impulses and yes to building them. Every choice you make today is a seed, and you either plant to reap freedom or plant to reap imprisonment. The decision is yours every day, but it's not about living in fear or guilt. It's not about being tight-fisted or rigid. The Bible also talks about enjoying the fruits of your labor, about rejoicing in what you've achieved. Healthy wealth isn't oppressive, it's liberating. It allows you to help more people, live more peacefully, bless your family, and realize your dreams. But it needs to be accompanied by maturity. And it's this maturity that Proverbs teaches. A mature mind thinks long-term, acts with balance, doesn't give in to impulses, and walks steadily, even on difficult days. Have you ever noticed that some people earn little but live well, while others earn a lot and always struggle? This happens because the difference lies in what they do with what they have. Proverbs teaches that there is one who gives generously and sees his wealth increase, another who withholds what he should give and comes to poverty. Here's a secret: generosity opens doors. When you share, when you help, when you are grateful and generous, you signal to your mind that there is abundance, and your mind begins to work in favor of prosperity. Wealth attracts more wealth when it comes with generosity, and scarcity attracts more scarcity when it's driven by fear. That's why so many people remain in the same place, not because the world is unfair, but because internally they're still stuck in a small, limited, shrinking mindset. Proverbs also says that a cheerful heart makes the face cheerful, meaning your internal state is reflected externally. If you cultivate joy, gratitude, and positivity, you begin to radiate something different. And what you radiate, you attract. If you're listening this far, it's because within you there's a genuine desire for change. There's a genuine desire to grow, and that's great. Now it's time to take the next step. Start practicing day after day the principles we've been exploring. Remember this: wealth isn't luck. It's the result of a mindset, and this mindset begins with a decision. A conscious choice to leave scarcity behind and open yourself to the abundance that comes from wisdom. Wealth isn't about how much money you have now, but about how capable you are of becoming a person who thinks, acts, and lives richly. Gold, land, business, comfort, all of these are the result of a solid, disciplined, and mature mindset. And the book of Proverbs demonstrates this in detail that can no longer be ignored by those who truly want to prosper. One of the most important pillars of the biblical text is the concept of diligence. In several passages, Proverbs contrasts the diligent with the lazy, and the result is always the same. The diligent prosper, the lazy become poor. But what does being diligent mean? It's not just working hard. Being diligent means working right. It's being consistent. It's getting up every day and doing what needs to be done, even when no one is looking. The diligent don't wait for motivation. They are committed. And that changes everything. The world doesn't reward those who merely dream. It rewards those who act with persistence. When you begin to apply this principle of diligence, you create a discipline that shapes your reality. A diligent person doesn't waste time. They understand the value of every hour, every opportunity. They don't live adrift. They are intentional. And wealth loves clear intention. A disorganized, directionless life, full of excuses, is a life where wealth doesn't last. It may even appear for a while, but it will slip through your fingers. Now, when you become diligent, you become fertile soil. And Proverbs says, "Well-laid plans lead to plenty, but a hasty person ends in poverty." In other words, haste, anxiety, and immediacy are enemies of prosperity. Another profound lesson from the book is about the value of words. Proverbs is full of warnings and advice about how we use our mouths. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. This is very serious. If you constantly say it's hard, that everything is expensive, that you can't do it, that you were born to suffer, then you are sowing scarcity with your own mouth. Your words build your reality. Start paying attention to what comes out of your mouth. Speak of possibilities, solutions, gratitude, vision. Even if everything around you says otherwise, change begins with the word. Change what you say about yourself. Instead of saying, "I can't save money," say, "I'm learning to organize my finances." Instead of saying, "I'm unlucky," say, "Good things are starting to happen for me." These small changes, repeated daily, reprogram your brain. And this isn't magic, it's biology. Your brain believes what you repeat. If it repeats scarcity, it prepares for scarcity. If it repeats abundance, it adapts to find opportunities. And here comes another powerful point: the value of silence. Proverbs says, Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. Wisdom often lies not in speaking more, but in observing more, listening more, reflecting more before acting. The scarce mind is noisy, constantly wanting to be heard, wanting to prove itself right, constantly justifying mistakes, complaining, criticizing. The prosperous mind, on the other hand, is attentive, analytical, and patient. It knows it doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. It's committed to results, not appearances. Learning to keep quiet when it's time to keep quiet is a sign of maturity. Most people miss opportunities not because they lack ability, but because they talk too much, act at the wrong time, rush and sabotage themselves. Proverbs show us that those who master their tongue master themselves, and those who master themselves are ready to rule over riches. Wealth cannot tolerate emotional instability. It requires balance, prudence, and a vision that goes beyond the moment. Another essential principle that Proverbs teaches us is the fear of the Lord as the beginning of wisdom. And here it's important to understand this in a practical and logical way. To fear is not to be afraid. It's to have reverence, respect, and an awareness that there is an order in the universe, that there are principles that cannot be ignored. It's knowing that everything you do comes back to you, that the harvest is the consequence of the seed. This fear invites us to live responsibly, righteously, and ethically. And when you do this, you build trust. And trust is the foundation for any form of wealth. No one prospers sustainably by being dishonest, manipulative, or greedy. It may even seem that some thrive this way, but it's an illusion. The Bible shows that the end of the wicked is destruction. True prosperity requires firm roots, and Proverbs is full of these roots. It teaches us not to seek shortcuts, not to envy the success of the wicked, to keep our feet on the ground. It teaches that the righteous flourish like a palm tree, and the palm tree grows slowly, but it grows steadily. It grows tall, it grows strong, and it weathers storms. If you want to truly become rich, you need to learn to build a solid foundation, and that starts with your mind, your values, and your daily habits. Proverbs says that the heart of the wise seeks knowledge. In other words, a wise person doesn't settle for what they already know. They're always learning, always growing, always evolving. And this thirst for learning is a hallmark of a rich mind, because those who learn improve, and those who improve attract better results. Many people complain that life doesn't change, yet they continue repeating the same patterns, the same mistakes, the same thoughts. It's impossible to have a new life with the same old mindset. Proverbs calls us to this renewal, to seek understanding, not to rely on our own assumptions, but to listen, observe, and apply them. And here's another secret. It's not enough to just listen to these teachings. You have to practice. You have to put them into action. You have to transform words into actions. Today, perhaps you're feeling far from the life you want. Maybe you're struggling to pay the bills, afraid of the future, stuck in a job you dislike, surrounded by limitations. But the good news is, you can get out of there. You can forge a new path. And that path begins now with this decision to seek wisdom, to apply the right principles, to change your way of thinking, speaking, and acting, one step at a time. And each step will bring you closer to abundance. Start declaring every day, I am becoming a wealthy, wise, disciplined, and prosperous person. Repeat this with conviction. Write it down in the comments now to confirm this commitment to yourself. Say it out loud so your mind registers, wisdom is guiding me to prosperity. These phrases aren't magic, they're mental programming. And over time, your mind will begin to align with this new reality. Wealth isn't luck, it's a consequence. And Proverbs is here like a reliable map, showing you every step. You just have to decide to follow it. There's a big difference between those who dream of wealth and those who are preparing to receive it. This difference lies in behavior, mental attitude, and the way they view themselves and the world around them. The book of Proverbs is perhaps one of the greatest prosperity mindset training programs in existence. The Bible doesn't romanticize poverty, nor does it glorify wealth as something automatic or easy. But it clearly shows that wisdom, when applied consistently, naturally leads to a state of prosperity. The problem for many people is that they still harbor old beliefs, shaped by cultural, familial, religious, or social repetitions. They grew up hearing that money is dirty, that rich people don't go to heaven, that those born poor will die poor, and all these phrases have destroyed the value of effort, merit, discipline, and responsibility. But Proverbs doesn't teach this. It shows that wisdom is more valuable than gold. It shows that those who act intelligently, who manage their possessions well, who avoid waste, and who are generous, build a life of abundance. You might think, but I didn't have the opportunities, the support, the financial education, and that may be true, but it's not the end. The good news is that you can start now, even with little, to develop a mindset that attracts wealth. Proverbs teaches that the path of the righteous is like the shining light that shines brighter and brighter until the perfect day. This means that progress may be slow at first, but it is constant for those who persist. There's no need to compare yourself to anyone else. Your path is yours, and if you remain faithful to the correct principles, your life will inevitably improve. One of the greatest enemies of prosperity is comparison. Proverbs shows that envy is like rottenness in the bones. In other words, it corrodes from within, consumes and weakens. While you waste energy looking at what others have, you're neglecting what you can develop within yourself. A rich mind is focused. It doesn't waste time on pointless competition. It understands that each person has their own time, process, and journey. Comparison steals peace, and without peace, no one prospers. Because true prosperity includes tranquility. The Bible speaks clearly about this. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without righteousness. In other words, there's no point in having money if you live anxious, fearful, suspicious, and trapped. What really matters is having wealth that liberates you, that brings you balance, that allows you to live with dignity. And this only comes when the foundation is solid. When you plant honesty, you reap trust. When you plant effort, you reap results. When you plant wisdom, you reap direction. Proverbs also warns about the danger of greed. He who pursues riches recklessly will not go unpunished. This means that the rush to get rich, the unbridled pursuit without criteria or values, ultimately leads to frustration. True wealth comes slowly, with maturity. It isn't built overnight. It requires preparation. And here's a crucial point. If you don't yet have the wealth you desire, perhaps it's because you're still being shaped to receive it. The mind needs to grow before the money arrives, because if the money arrives first, it's lost. How many stories have you heard of people who won the lottery, inherited wealth, or got rich quick and lost it all? This happens because they lacked the internal structure to maintain it. And Proverbs shows that wisdom is the foundation of this structure. You need to grow as a person before you can grow as a bank account. You need to learn to control your impulses, control your spending, manage your time, and maintain discipline. All of this is training. And this training starts now where you are with what you have. Another strong point of the book is about relationships. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Your prosperity is also linked to the people around you. If you hang out with people who only complain, only think small, only talk about scarcity, it's almost impossible to grow, because your environment influences your thoughts. On the other hand, if you start surrounding yourself with people who think ahead, who seek growth, who have positive attitudes, you begin to absorb that energy, and your mindset changes. Maybe you're thinking, but I don't know people like that. So start with what you're listening to here. Start being more selective about what you consume. Stop watching content that only depicts tragedy, that only fuels fear. Invest in listening to, watching, and reading content that nourishes faith, vision, discipline, and wisdom. Proverbs is transformative content. Use it as a foundation. Make it your daily source. And soon you'll notice your mind changing, your vision expanding, and your faith being rationally activated. Let's talk about another powerful principle: humility. Proverbs says, "Before honor comes humility." Many people want to be honored, want recognition, want wealth, but don't want to go through the process of becoming humble. And humility isn't about diminishing yourself. It's not about feeling inferior. It's about knowing you still have things to learn. It's about recognizing that you need to grow, that you need to change your habits. It's about being teachable. Those who think they already know everything stop growing, and those who stop growing stop prospering. Humility puts you in a position to advance. It opens doors for you. It allows you to listen to advice, accept correction, and adjust your path. And this is crucial for prosperity. No one gets it right all the time, but those who learn from their mistakes become stronger. Proverbs says, "A fool despises instruction, but a wise man listens to advice." If you want to get rich, you need to be willing to change whatever is necessary. You need to take an honest look at your own life and ask, what can I improve today? And here's a practical exercise. Every day when you wake up, read a verse from Proverbs and reflect on it. Just one, but read it carefully. Ask yourself, How can I apply this to my life today? Then declare a prosperity phrase out loud. It could be something like, wisdom guides me and wealth is coming to me. Do this for 30 days. Your mind will begin to be trained. You'll notice your thoughts changing, your attitudes improving, your energy rising. Change begins with small habits, a verse a day, a positive statement, a different thought, a new behavior. Don't underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. That's what Proverbs teaches. That's what the Bible shows. Prosperity is built. It doesn't fall from the sky. It springs from within and manifests itself outward. And if you followed this far, it's because something within you is already awakening. Continue on this path. Continue seeking wisdom. Continue training your mind. Continue applying the right principles. Because the wealth you desire is closer than you think. It's being formed right now within you. Prospering isn't about changing your location. It's about changing your mindset. One of the most impactful things the book of Proverbs reveals to us is that everything begins in the heart. That is, in the mind, in the thoughts, in the intentions. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This verse is one of the most powerful teachings about true prosperity. It shows that what you keep in your mind, what you nourish internally, will determine the quality of your external life. Wealth begins in the invisible, in the way you think and feel. If your mind is filled with fear, insecurity, complaints, guilt, or envy, then that's what your life will be made of. Even if something good comes your way, if your inner foundation isn't prepared, it won't last. That's why so many people manage to make some money but can't keep it. Proverbs shows that keeping it is harder than earning it, and keeping it requires maturity, emotional structure, and wisdom in every decision. And this wisdom doesn't appear overnight. It is cultivated. And here's one of the great secrets to attracting wealth. You need to become trustworthy. The Bible says that he who is faithful in little will be made ruler over much. This is extremely logical. If you can't take good care of the little you have now, how can you expect to handle great abundance? Often your prosperity hasn't arrived yet, not because you're incapable, but because you're being trained. The universe tests you in the details. If you're negligent with small values, with time, with relationships, with your own routine, how can you be trusted with great responsibilities? Wealth is responsibility. It requires clarity. It requires discipline. It requires self-control. And Proverbs speaks precisely to this. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. In other words, those who can control themselves have more power than those who achieve great things externally. A prosperous mind is stable, strong, and patient. And this strength isn't something magical. It is built day after day through small choices. You may not realize it yet, but every time you decide to remain calm in the face of a problem, every time you choose to be grateful instead of complaining, every time you organize your life instead of leaving everything in chaos, you are preparing yourself for wealth. These habits create inner space, and where there is order, there is room for prosperity to flow. Proverbs teaches that the plans of the diligent lead to abundance. Note, it's not luck, it's not chance, it's planning, it's intention, it's consistency. These are simple actions done wisely that accumulated over time generate extraordinary results. Have you ever stopped to notice how prosperous people think differently? They don't waste energy on things they can't control. They don't live blaming others or playing the victim. They take responsibility for their own lives. Proverbs teaches this when it says, "A prudent person foresees evil and hides himself, but the foolish pass on and suffer the consequences." In other words, a prudent person anticipates. They observe. They prepare. They don't wait for problems to arrive to act. They build a life on a solid foundation so as not to be toppled by storms. Now think, how many times have you let emotion rule your decision-making? How many times have you spent on impulse? How many times have you made decisions based on haste, anxiety, or comparison? All of this generates loss. And Proverbs is a constant warning. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. This applies to everything. Financial decisions, relationships, daily habits. What seems good now may not be good in the long run. And that's where wisdom comes in. A rich mind thinks about the future. It doesn't trade what it really wants for what it wants now. That's why it's so important to develop the habit of reflection. Set aside at least 10 minutes every day to reflect on your life. Where is your time going? Where is your money going? What habits are building your future? What words are shaping your reality? This daily exercise of analysis is one of the greatest secrets of those who prosper. And it's something Proverbs values immensely. Wisdom is born from observation and constant learning. And here comes another powerful principle, self-control. Proverbs says, "Like a city broken down and without walls, so is a man without self-control." This is incredibly powerful. A city without walls was vulnerable to any attack. Likewise, a person without self-control is always vulnerable to impulses, to the opinions of others, to temptations, to external circumstances. And those who are unstable cannot hold on to wealth. They may even acquire it, but they lose it, because internal instability attracts external loss. If you want to attract wealth, start by strengthening the walls of your mind. Create boundaries, discipline your habits, learn to say no when necessary, learn to wait for the right time. Don't live chasing everything. Don't live trying to prove something to others. True prosperity requires internal stability. Those who are guided by impulse live through ups and downs. Those guided by wisdom live in constant progress, even if it seems slow to others. Another valuable aspect of Proverbs is how it values justice and integrity. Treasures gained by lies are a passing illusion and a snare of death. In other words, anything achieved without truth, ethics, or transparency is unsustainable. And this also applies to how you treat others. A rich mind understands that everything is an exchange, that everything you do comes back. If you deceive, you will be deceived. If you delay, you will be delayed. If you disrespect, you will be disrespected. It's simple and it's fair. Integrity is not a burden. It is your protection. When you live with integrity, you walk in peace. And peace is an essential foundation for growth. Those who live constantly worried, hiding things, running away, justifying, are always tired. And a tired mind doesn't create wealth. Now, when you live with truth, clarity, and firm values, your mind has the freedom to create, to grow, to produce. And that's where prosperity finds a home. If you're hearing all this so far, know that it's no coincidence. Something inside you is being activated. Maybe you still have doubts. Maybe you still feel fear. Maybe you think your current situation is too difficult. But remember what Proverbs says. The path of the righteous is like the light of dawn. It becomes clearer, brighter, more prosperous, not because everything around you suddenly changes, but because you change. And when you change, the world responds. Today, once again, I invite you to declare forcefully, "I am becoming a wise and prosperous person." Write it in the comments. Repeat it out loud. Make your mind hear it. Make your mind believe it, because it is this belief that will create space for wealth to enter. Don't wait any longer. Start now. Your life is in your hands. Now, if you want to hear more content about wisdom continuously, subscribe to the channel and click on the playlist I left here on the screen. I have selected the best audiobooks for you to listen to. I see you.